We like our Bible stories clean, wrapped in neat theological bows about kindness and faith, and everything turning out just fine in the end. But if you actually venture into the lives of the prophets, things get incredibly uncomfortable. What do you do with a God who commands a man to marry a woman he already knows will break his heart? Or a God who tells a priest to prepare his lunch over human waste? To the casual reader, these moments look like divine madness. But to the scholar and the seeker, these are what we call sign acts. In the ancient Near East, when the people became spiritually deaf, God stopped just speaking and started directing. He turned his prophets into living, breathing parables, designed to shock the conscience of a nation that had stopped feeling. Today we are diving deep into 4 divine scandals, going beyond the surface to decode the strange commands of God and the heartbreakingly beautiful messages hidden in the bizarre. Our first stop is the 8th century BC, where we meet a man named Hosea, a prophet of God, who receives the most scandalous command in the entire Bible. Go, take to yourself a wife of whoredom. Whether God meant a prostitute or a woman he knew would become unfaithful, the result was the same: a life of public shame. Hosea's marriage became a living whiteboard for the gospel. Her name was Gomer, and eventually, she left him. She didn't just walk away from her marriage. She walked all the way to a slave auction block. Now here is the detail most people miss entirely. When Hosea went to buy her back, he paid 15 pieces of silver and some barley. That was half the going price of a common slave. She was so broken, so discarded, so devalued that even the market had given up on her. And God sent her husband anyway, at full love, half price. This illustrates the Hebrew word Hesed, unfailing, relentless, scandalous love. Not the love you earn, the love that finds you, no matter where you have ended up. Hosea's heartbreak was not just his own story. It was a physical manifestation of God's own heart, proving that he doesn't just love the righteous, he relentlessly pursues the rebel. If Hosea's command was emotionally jarring, Ezekiel's was physically grueling. Known as the performance artist of the Bible, Ezekiel was first told to lie on his left side for 390 days, each single day representing 1 year of Israel's sin against God. Then on his right side for 40 more days, each day representing a year of Judah's rebellion. God was not being random. He was a precise accountant of rebellion. He had been counting every year, every act of defiance, and now he was putting the total on display through a man's body. But the command that truly makes us cringe? God tells him to bake his bread using human excrement as fuel. As a priest, this didn't just disgust Ezekiel, it threatened his entire identity. A priest made ceremonially unclean could not serve God. This was not just gross. This was devastating. But here is the moment that most preachers skip entirely. Ezekiel objects, and God relents. He allowed cow dung instead. And why does that matter? Because it shows us that God's goal was never to torture the prophet. It was to communicate with the nation through every uncomfortable detail. Because Jerusalem was about to fall to Babylon's siege, and the people inside those walls would be forced to eat unclean food just to survive. Ezekiel's kitchen was a prophecy of a coming national nightmare. And the real point beneath the point? Their idolatry, their worship of false gods, was far more offensive to God than that fire ever was to Ezekiel. Then there is Isaiah, distinguished, respected, advisor to kings, who was commanded by God to strip off his outer garment and walk naked and barefoot through the streets of Jerusalem for 3 full years. Now, let's be precise. In the ancient context, naked here meant stripped down to a loincloth, the clothing of a slave. But do not let the clarification soften what this actually meant for a man of Isaiah's standing. 3 years is longer than most military campaigns of the ancient world ever lasted. He was not a street preacher making a point for a weekend. He outlasted an entire war with his own body as the sermon. For 3 years, Isaiah walked the streets of Jerusalem as a living warning to those who were trusting in the empires of Egypt and Ethiopia for military protection, instead of God. And his body told the story of their future. If you trust in worldly empires, you will be led away as a captive, stripped, and shamed. Exactly, like this. The message was unmistakable. Human power leaves you naked. Only God clothes his people. 3 prophets down, 1 left. And I need to ask you something before we get there. Are you subscribed to Bible Board? Because if this video is the first time you are hearing any of this, you have missed a lot. And there is a lot more coming. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and do not let the algorithm decide whether you see what comes next. That is your choice. Now, let's talk about Jeremiah and a belt that rotted in the ground. Finally, we come to Jeremiah. No auction block, no fire, no public nakedness. Just a quiet command. Bury a linen waistband in the ground. Now, here is the detail that almost everyone misses. God told Jeremiah to bury it at the Euphrates River. The Euphrates was roughly 400 miles from Jerusalem. Some scholars believe he made that journey twice. Think about that for a moment. The obedience was inconvenient before anything had even happened yet. The decay began inside the prophet long before it ever appeared in the belt. Then time passed and he dug it up. It was good for nothing. And that is the message. Pride and distance from God don't break you loudly. They rot you quietly, from the inside out, long before anyone else can see it. The outside can still look perfectly fine, while the core has already turned to dust. Notice what God did across these 4 men. He went from breaking a heart, to breaking a stomach, to breaking a reputation, to breaking pride. He was not being cruel. He was desperate. He was running out of ways to shock a nation that had stopped feeling. Each of these bizarre commands required the same 3 things from the prophet: total obedience, public scandal, and a divine explanation, proving that God will go to extreme, even scandalous, lengths to get our attention. These prophets were the original whiteboard animators, using their very lives to draw a picture of a God who is a consuming fire. But they were all leading forward. Every sign act was a shadow, pointing toward one final ultimate sign act, where a king, innocent, perfect, eternal, died like a criminal, on a cross. He was stripped, like Isaiah. He was betrayed, like Hosea. He was despised and discarded, like Jeremiah's worthless belt. And he bore the filth of our sin, becoming ceremonially unclean for us, like Ezekiel's fire. He did not come to observe our brokenness from a safe distance. He came to buy back a world that had turned its back on him. At full love, for half the price of a worthless slave, for the price of his own life. And that cracked heart, the one we have been carrying since the very beginning of this story, it is whole now. Stitched together, healed, with one word written inside it, Hesed. That is the scandal, and that is the gospel. You are the rebel he is still walking toward. The question is not whether he will pursue you. The question is, will you stop running?